The silence hit first. 23 people had been in my mother's living room 30 seconds earlier, laughing, talking, clinking glasses of eggnog and mulled wine, doing all the performative things families do on Christmas Day when they're pretending everything is fine. Now there was nothing but the sound of my dead father's voice playing from a speaker hidden inside a gift-wrapped box. I watched it happen through 6 camera feeds arranged across my laptop screen. The Nest camera in the living room showed the main scene. My sister Brooke frozen mid-reach, her manicured fingers inches from the speaker she'd just tried to grab. The Ring doorbell camera showed the empty front porch where I'd left the package 12 hours earlier. The kitchen camera showed abandoned appetizer plates and half-empty wine glasses. The hallway camera showed Derek's parents slipping toward the back door, their faces the color of spoiled milk. My mother sat at the head of the dining table, both hands pressed flat against the linen tablecloth my grandmother had embroidered 40 years ago, staring at the empty chair where my father used to sit every Christmas for the past 37 years. The chair they wouldn't let me occupy. The recording kept playing. Think about what it would do to her if she found out you left Meredith in charge. You know they don't get along. You know Meredith will make this difficult. That was Derek's voice. My brother-in-law, the financial advisor, the man my family trusted with everything. Meredith will make sure everything is fair. That's the point. That was my father's voice. Gerald Robert Collins. Dead for 8 months, speaking from beyond the grave to a room full of people who had spent those 8 months believing lies about his final wishes. Fair isn't always best, Gerald. Sometimes family means making hard choices, protecting the people who actually show up. Is that a threat? It's an observation. Things have a way of working out for people who cooperate. On the screen, I watched my Uncle Richard step forward. His face was dark with something I'd never seen there before, a kind of cold fury that transformed his usually jovial features into something dangerous. His hands were clenched at his sides. He was looking at Derek the way you look at an intruder who's broken into your home. What the hell is this? Uncle Richard's voice cut through the stunned silence. Before I continue, you need to understand something about me. Something important. I'm not a dramatic person. I don't create scenes or seek attention or manufacture conflict for entertainment. I'm a 42-year-old certified public accountant who lives alone in a 3-bedroom ranch house with a cat named Leonard, who only tolerates my existence when I'm holding his food bowl. I spend my Friday nights reconciling spreadsheets and watching true crime documentaries while eating takeout Thai food from the same restaurant I've been ordering from for 11 years. I'm the person people call boring, predictable, safe. I'm also the person my family has called negative for as long as I can remember. That word, negative, has followed me like a shadow my entire life. It started when I was 7 years old and asked why my sister Brooke got ballet lessons but I didn't. It continued when I was 12 and noticed that every family vacation somehow coincided with Brooke's dance competitions. It intensified when I was 16 and questioned why my curfew was 2 hours earlier than hers had been at the same age. Every time I asked a question that made someone uncomfortable, I was being negative. Every time I noticed something that didn't add up, I was ruining the mood. Every time I tried to protect my family from something they didn't want to see, I was the problem. Listen, I know how this sounds. I know you might be thinking that I'm a bitter, scorned woman who couldn't let go of childhood resentments and decided to ruin Christmas for everyone out of spite. You're wrong. I didn't ruin Christmas. I saved my mother's life. And by the time I'm done telling you this story, you'll understand exactly how close we came to losing everything. Not just my father's money, but my mother herself. 8 months ago, my father died of a stroke in his garage while changing the oil in his Toyota Camry. 6 days ago, my sister called to tell me I wasn't welcome at Christmas dinner because my negative energy would upset our grieving mother. And right now, at this very moment, I was watching everything I'd worked for over the past 72 hours play out on camera, while my father's recorded voice explained exactly what had been done to our family. The speaker was a simple Bluetooth device I'd bought at Best Buy for $34.99. I'd connected it to my phone, programmed it to activate automatically when someone opened the gift box, and hidden it beneath layers of gold tissue paper and a framed photograph of my father and me taken on my last birthday. The photograph was real. The sentiment behind it was genuine. Everything else was strategy. On the screen, Derek finally found his voice. His perfect composure was cracking, showing something ugly underneath, something I'd always sensed but could never prove. "This is ridiculous," he said, his voice too loud, too sharp. "I'm not going to stand here and be interrogated by..." "By who?" My mother's voice cut through the room like a blade through silk. I'd never heard her speak like that. Not once in 42 years. "By your wife's family? By the people you've been lying to for months?" She reached into the gift box with trembling hands. Under the broken speaker, Derek had smashed it against the coffee table, but not before the damage was done. Her fingers found something else. A USB drive, taped to the bottom of the box, right where I'd left it. What else did Meredith send? That's when I knew it had worked. That's when I knew they couldn't lie their way out of this. That's when I realized I was about to get my family back, or lose them forever. "My name is Meredith Ann Collins. I need you to understand who I am before I tell you what I did, because context matters. The person matters. The history matters. Without that foundation, this story becomes just another tale of family drama and holiday revenge. And it's so much more than that. I was born on July 19th, 1983 at Presbyterian Hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina, a hospital that's now a shopping center, which tells you something about how much things change. I grew up in a 4-bedroom colonial in the suburbs of Charlotte, the kind of house with a basketball hoop in the driveway that nobody used after my father's knees went bad, and a swing set in the backyard that rusted into obsolescence when Brooke and I hit middle school. I was the first child, the responsible one, the one who made the honor roll every semester and cleaned her room without being asked, and never gave my parents a single moment of genuine worry. Teachers loved me. Neighbors complimented my parents on my manners. I was the kind of child that other parents pointed to and said, "Why can't you be more like Meredith?" I hated it, honestly. Being held up as an example meant being held apart. It meant being watched, measured, expected to perform. It meant that any deviation from perfection was noticed and commented upon. 3 years after I was born, Brooke arrived. She was different from the moment she took her first breath. Louder, more demanding, more present. When Brooke walked into a room, you noticed. When I walked into a room, you checked to see if someone more interesting was behind me. I don't say this with bitterness anymore. I've had decades to process it and years of therapy to understand it. It's simply the truth. Some people are born with a kind of gravitational pull that draws attention toward them naturally. Brooke had it. I didn't. What I had was something else entirely. I noticed things. When I was 7, I noticed that the numbers on my allowance didn't add up. Brooke and I were supposed to get the same amount each week. That was the rule my parents had established. But when I counted the coins in my hand and compared them to the coins in Brooks. Hers always had an extra quarter. When I pointed this out, my mother said it was because she's younger and needs encouragement. I asked what I needed encouragement for. "You don't need encouragement, Mary. You're already motivated." I was 7. I didn't understand what that meant, but I understood that asking questions led to explanations that didn't make sense, and that not making sense was somehow my fault for asking. When I was 12, I noticed that the family vacation we took every summer just happened to coincide with Brooks' regional dance competitions. We'd drive 8 hours to Orlando or Myrtle Beach or Atlanta, and Brooke would spend 3 days competing while I sat in hotel rooms doing summer reading assignments. The one time I asked if we could go somewhere Brooke wasn't competing, my father said they'd look into it. We never did. When I was 16, I noticed that my curfew was 9 p.m. on weekends, while Brooke, at the same age, had been allowed to stay out until 11 p.m. When I asked why, my mother said it was because things were different then, and "you're more responsible, so we worry about you differently." I still don't understand what that means. What I understand is this: every time I asked a question that made someone uncomfortable, I was being negative. Every time I noticed an inconsistency and pointed it out, I was ruining the mood. Every time I tried to advocate for fairness or equality or basic logic, I was the problem. "Why do you always have to find something wrong?" my mother would ask, with genuine confusion in her voice. "Why can't you just be happy?" I didn't know how to explain that I wasn't looking for things wrong. I was just seeing them. The way some people see colors more vividly than others, or hear musical notes more clearly, I saw patterns, inconsistencies, numbers that didn't add up, stories that didn't match, details that everyone else seemed to glide right past. It wasn't a choice. It was just how my brain worked, and for 42 years, I was made to feel like there was something wrong with me because of it. Let me tell you about my education and career, because it matters for what comes later. I was good at school. Not just good, exceptional. Math came easily to me. Numbers made sense in a way that social dynamics never did. When I looked at an equation, I could see the path to the answer like a lit highway through darkness. When I looked at a group of teenagers trying to navigate friendships and hierarchies, I saw chaos and confusion and rules that changed depending on who was enforcing them. I chose math. I chose certainty. I chose the world where 2 plus 2 always equaled 4, regardless of who was asking or what mood they were in. I graduated from high school as salutatorian. Brooks' friend Madison was valedictorian, and I've always suspected that the 0.002 GPA difference between us had more to do with Madison's mother being on the school board than any actual academic superiority. But I kept that suspicion to myself. See? I noticed things even then. I just learned not to say them out loud. I went to UNC Charlotte on a full academic scholarship. I majored in accounting because it combined my love of numbers with practical career applications. I graduated summa cum laude in 4 years, while working 20 hours a week at a tax preparation office to build experience. I took the CPA exam 3 weeks after graduation, passed on my first attempt. The pass rate that year was 49%. I scored in the 94th percentile. My mother's response when I told her, "That's wonderful, honey." "Oh, did I tell you? Brooke got engaged." I don't think she meant to diminish my accomplishment. I don't think she even realized she was doing it. It's just that some achievements are visible and exciting: an engagement ring, a wedding to plan, a future full of romantic possibility. And some achievements are invisible and boring. Passing a professional certification exam falls firmly into the second category. I worked at 3 different accounting firms over the next decade. Each one was a step up. More responsibility, more clients, more money, more respect. By the time I was 32, I was a senior manager at a mid-sized firm called Patterson and Associates, with a corner office, a team of 3 junior accountants, and a reputation for finding discrepancies that other auditors missed. Meredith has a nose for fraud, my boss used to say when introducing me to new clients. If there's something wrong with your numbers, she'll find it. And if there's nothing wrong, she'll confirm it faster than anyone else. He meant it as a compliment. My colleagues didn't always interpret it that way. Must be nice to always assume the worst about everyone, one of them said to me once, after I'd flagged irregularities in an account he'd signed off on. I don't assume the worst, I told him. I just look at the data. Same thing, isn't it? No, it's not. But I didn't bother explaining. At 34, I opened my own practice. Meredith Collins, CPA, a small firm specializing in forensic accounting, tax preparation, and financial consulting. I started with 2 employees and a rented office in a strip mall. Within 5 years, I had 8 employees, a proper office building, and clients ranging from small businesses to nonprofit organizations to individuals going through contentious divorces who needed their assets properly valued. I built something from nothing, by myself. And every Sunday, I drove to my parents' house for dinner and listened to my mother talk about Brooke's latest kitchen renovation or vacation or dinner party or whatever else was happening in my sister's far more interesting life. Let me tell you about my marriage, because that matters too. His name was Kevin Marsh. I met him at a professional networking event when I was 27, one of those awkward mixers where everyone wears name tags and makes small talk about quarterly earnings while nursing glasses of cheap wine. Kevin wasn't like the other people at that event. He wasn't an accountant or a financial advisor or a lawyer. He was an entrepreneur. A word I would later learn was often code for unemployed with big dreams. But at the time, his confidence was intoxicating. He talked about business opportunities and passive income streams and thinking outside the box. He made me feel like my careful, methodical approach to life was somehow limiting. "You're so smart," he told me on our 3rd date. "But you play it safe. What would happen if you took some risks?" I didn't know how to tell him that my entire life felt like a risk. That every day, I walked into a world that didn't quite make sense to me, where the rules shifted and changed depending on who was enforcing them, where social dynamics operated according to laws I couldn't see. Playing it safe wasn't a choice. It was survival. We got married after 18 months of dating. Small ceremony. My parents came. Brooke was my maid of honor, though she spent most of the reception talking to Kevin's college roommates and forgot to give her toast until the DJ prompted her. We bought a house, a modest 3-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. We had a daughter, Lily Ann Marsh, born on a Tuesday morning after 14 hours of labor. The best thing that has ever happened to me. For 5 years, I thought I had everything I wanted. A career I was good at, a husband who believed in me, a daughter who looked at me like I hung the moon. Then I found the second bank account. It was an accident. I was doing our taxes, of course I did our taxes, I was a CPA, and I noticed a discrepancy, a small one, the kind of thing most people would overlook. But I'm not most people. I pulled our bank statements, cross-referenced deposits and withdrawals, tracked the numbers across months and years. Kevin had been siphoning money from our joint savings for 3 years. Small amounts at first, $200 here, $300 there, the kind of withdrawals that could be explained away as cash for lunches or gas or, I forgot to mention it. But the amounts grew. $500, $800, and $1,500. By the time I discovered what he was doing, he'd moved nearly $80,000 into a separate account I didn't know existed. From there, the money had gone into a business venture that his college roommate was running. The business venture was a pyramid scheme. Kevin had lost everything. When I confronted him with the evidence, spreadsheets, bank statements, a complete accounting of every dollar he'd taken, he didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. "You're always watching the money," he said. "You're obsessed with it. I can't breathe in this marriage. Everything has to be accounted for. Everything has to add up. You're exhausting, Meredith. You're exhausting to live with." I stared at him. At this man I'd married. This man I'd trusted. "You stole $80,000 from our family. I invested it. There's a difference. It's gone, Kevin. The money is gone. I was trying to build something. I was trying to create opportunities for us. But you wouldn't understand that, would you? Because you don't take risks. You just watch and judge and wait for people to fail." 2 weeks later, he moved to Arizona to find himself. I haven't seen him since. Lily was 6 years old. I sat her down in our living room, the living room of the house we'd bought together, the house I would now have to figure out how to keep on one income. And I tried to explain that Daddy had to go away for a while. She asked if it was because of something she did. I told her no. I told her it was because sometimes adults make decisions that don't make sense, and that none of this was her fault. She asked if I was going to leave too. I held her so tight. I promised her I would never leave, that I would always be there, that she could count on me no matter what. I've kept that promise for 16 years. The divorce was finalized 8 months after Kevin left. He didn't contest anything. He didn't have the resources to contest anything, and I don't think he cared enough to try. He signed away his parental rights in exchange for me not pursuing him for the stolen money. I agreed, because having him legally out of our lives was worth more than any amount I might have recovered. I raised Lily alone. I rebuilt our finances alone. I refinanced the house, cut expenses to the bone, took on extra clients, worked 60-hour weeks while making sure I was home for dinner every night and at every school event and every parent-teacher conference. I made it work. I always make it work. And every Sunday, I drove to my parents' house for dinner. Every Sunday, I listened to my mother talk about how lucky Brooke was to have found Derek, how he was such a provider, how their marriage was so solid, how it was so nice that Brooke didn't have to worry about money the way some people did. The implication was clear. Brooke had chosen well. I had not. Brooke's life was a success story. Mine was a cautionary tale. I never argued. What was the point? My mother saw what she wanted to see. She always had. But I noticed things about Derek. Derek Michael Harrington entered our family's orbit when Brooke was 26 years old. They met at a charity gala or through a dating app, depending on which version of the story you heard and when you heard it. I noticed the inconsistency immediately. I mentioned it to no one. Derek was handsome in a polished, professional way. Good teeth, firm handshake. The kind of carefully cultivated appearance that suggested regular gym visits and expensive haircuts. He worked as a financial advisor at a boutique wealth management firm, which sounded impressive until you started asking questions about what that actually meant. I asked questions, privately, in my own head. I researched his firm online. I looked at their client reviews. I checked their regulatory filings. Everything seemed legitimate. Nothing raised red flags. But something about Derek made my skin prickle. Something about the way he smiled. Too wide, too often. Held too long. Something about the way he agreed with everything everyone said, never offering an opinion that might cause friction. Something about the way his eyes tracked around rooms, calculating, assessing. He's a people pleaser, I told myself. Some people are just like that. But I didn't believe it. Not really. My father didn't believe it either. "That boy smiles too much," he said to me once, about 2 years after Brooke and Derek's wedding. We were in his garage where he kept his tools organized with the same precision he applied to everything in his life. Men who smile that much are usually selling something. "What do you think he's selling?" Dad shrugged. "Haven't figured that out yet. But I will." I should have asked more questions then. I should have pushed harder. But I'd spent my whole life being told that my questions were negative, and my observations were paranoid, and my concerns were ruining the mood. So I kept my mouth shut. I watched Derek ingratiate himself with my family over the years. I watched him bring flowers for my mother on every visit. I watched him offer to help my father with home repairs, even though Derek clearly didn't know which end of a hammer to hold. I watched him gradually, subtly, persistently position himself as the family's go-to expert on all things financial. "You should really let me take a look at your investment portfolio, Gerald," he'd say at family dinners, leaning forward with that too wide smile. "I could probably get you an extra 2 or 3% annually. Compound interest, you know. It really adds up over time." My father always declined, politely but firmly. "I appreciate the offer, Derek, but I'm comfortable with my current setup." Derek would smile and nod and change the subject, but I saw the flicker of something in his eyes when he looked away. Frustration. Calculation. I mentioned it to Brooke once. Just once. A mistake I wouldn't repeat. "Derek seems really interested in Dad's investments." She laughed, but there was an edge to it. "He's a financial advisor, Mary. That's literally his job. He's trying to help. Not everyone has ulterior motives, you know. Not everything is suspicious. God, why do you always have to find something wrong with everything?" I let it go. I shouldn't have let it go. Let me tell you about my father. Gerald Robert Collins was born on March the 17th, 1952, in a small town in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. His father was a factory worker. His mother was a homemaker who raised 5 children on a factory worker's salary and never complained about anything except the weather. Dad was the youngest of those 5 children and the only one who went to college. He enrolled at NC State on a partial scholarship and a lot of determination, worked his way through school doing odd jobs and summer construction work, and graduated with a degree in industrial engineering in 1974. He got a job at a manufacturing plant in Charlotte the same year. Started as a floor supervisor. Worked his way up over 43 years to operations manager. Never changed companies. Never chased a bigger title at a competitor. Just showed up every day, did his job with quiet excellence, and came home to his family. He married my mother, Patricia Ann Whitley, in 1977. They'd met at a church picnic the summer before. She was 22, pretty and social and full of life. He was 25, steady and reliable, and utterly devoted to her from the first moment they met. They had me in 1983, Brooke in 1986, a complete family, the American dream. Dad coached my softball team when I was in elementary school. He taught Brooke to ride a bike. I still remember watching from the window, seeing him run alongside her down the sidewalk, his hand steady on the back of her seat. He built a treehouse in the backyard that we were both too scared to actually use. but he climbed up there sometimes to read on summer evenings. He wasn't perfect. No one is. He worked long hours and sometimes missed events. He wasn't emotionally expressive, a product of his generation and his upbringing. And there were times growing up when I wished he would just say he was proud of me instead of showing it through actions I had to interpret. But he was good, steady, reliable. The kind of father who might not say much, but who was always there when it mattered. And he was careful with money. Dad didn't believe in debt. He paid off the mortgage on our family home in 2005, 20 years ahead of schedule. He drove the same Toyota Camry for 15 years, only replacing it when the transmission finally gave out at 287,000 miles. He clipped coupons. He compared prices. He invested slowly and steadily in index funds and never once tried to time the market or chase hot tips. The tortoise beats the hare, he used to say. Slow and steady wins the race. By the time he retired at 65, he had accumulated what I estimated to be somewhere between $1.5 and $2 million in assets. Not wealthy by Silicon Valley standards, but comfortable. Enough to take care of my mother for the rest of her life. Enough to leave something meaningful to his daughters. Enough to never worry about money again. He also had something else. A deep, abiding distrust of people who promised easy money. If it sounds too good to be true, it usually is, he told me once, when I was in my 20s, and a colleague had mentioned an investment opportunity that promised 15% annual returns. The people who get rich quick are usually the ones selling the dream, not the ones buying it. I think about that conversation a lot now. I think about whether my father saw what was coming. I think about whether he tried to warn us, and we didn't listen. My father died on April 17th of this year. He was 71 years old, in perfect health according to his last physical, blood pressure normal, cholesterol managed, no signs of heart disease or any of the other things that kill men his age. He walked 2 miles every morning. He ate vegetables. He took his vitamins. There was no warning, no reason to expect anything was wrong. He was in his garage, changing the oil in his Camry, the new one he'd bought 3 years earlier when the old one finally died. When it happened. A stroke. Sudden and massive. The doctors would later tell us it was probably over in seconds. He wouldn't have suffered. He probably didn't even know what was happening. My mother found him when she came home from her book club meeting. He was lying on the concrete floor of the garage, a wrench still in his hand, his reading glasses knocked sideways on his face. She said later that her first thought was that he'd fallen asleep. That's how peaceful he looked. Then she noticed he wasn't breathing. She called 911. Paramedics arrived within 8 minutes. They worked on him for 22 minutes before pronouncing him dead at the scene. I got the call at 4:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at my office reviewing quarterly reports for a chain of dry cleaners I'd been hired to audit. My mother's name appeared on my phone screen, which was unusual. She usually called in the evenings. Mary. Her voice didn't sound like her voice. It was small and broken and seemed to be coming from very far away. Mary, your father is... he's gone. I don't remember driving to their house. I don't remember the next few hours at all, really. There's a gap in my memory between that phone call and standing in my parents' living room, surrounded by relatives and neighbors and casserole dishes covered in aluminum foil. The funeral was 4 days later. Standing room only at the church where my parents had been married 46 years earlier. The pastor talked about Gerald's faith, his dedication to family, his quiet integrity. Derek gave a reading. Brooke sang a hymn. I sat in the front row with my mother, and felt like I was watching everything from underwater. At the reception afterward, I overheard Derek talking to one of my father's former colleagues. "Gerald was so organized," Derek was saying, with that too wide smile. "He really had his affairs in order. It's making the transition much easier for Patricia." Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. But I was grieving. I was exhausted. I told myself I was being paranoid. I let it go. 3 weeks after the funeral, I asked Brooke about the estate. We were at my mother's house, helping sort through some of my father's belongings. My mother was upstairs resting. She'd been doing a lot of that since the funeral, sleeping 12 or 14 hours a day, moving through her waking hours like someone walking through water. Brooke was packing my father's books into cardboard boxes. I was organizing his desk, trying to make sense of his filing system, looking for documents that might be needed for the estate settlement. "Has Mom talked to a lawyer yet?" I asked. "About Dad's will?" Brooke didn't look up from the books. "Derek's handling all of that. He knows an estate attorney who specializes in this kind of thing. Everything's under control." "I could help, you know. I do this kind of thing for a living." Now Brooke looked at me. Her expression was patient in a way that made my skin prickle, the kind of patience reserved for difficult children or dim-witted employees. "Mary, I know you mean well, but this is really complicated stuff. Estate law, probate procedures, tax implications. Derek has experience with high-net-worth estates. He knows what he's doing. Dad's estate isn't exactly high net worth. You don't know what Dad had." Her voice sharpened. "You don't know everything, Mary. I know you think you do, but you don't." I didn't respond. I went back to the desk, to the files and folders and carefully labeled envelopes that represented my father's life in paper form. But I noticed something in that moment, a flash of something in Brooke's eyes that wasn't grief, wasn't stress, wasn't the exhaustion of losing a parent. It looked almost like satisfaction. Over the next few months, I tried to stay involved in the estate settlement. I called my mother once a week, sometimes more, to check on her. I offered to help with paperwork, to review documents, to answer any financial questions she might have. I asked about the timeline for probate, the valuation of assets, the distribution of funds. Every time I was redirected. "Derek's handling it. Derek says it's complicated. Derek says it's better if we leave it to the professionals. Derek says you should focus on your own work and not worry about this." And every time I pushed back, every time I asked for specifics or requested to see documents or suggested that maybe I should be involved, since this was my father's estate too, I was told I was being difficult, that I was causing stress, that my mother didn't need my negativity right now. That word again. Negative. I started to doubt myself. It's remarkable how effective gaslighting can be, even when you know it's happening. Even when you've studied the tactics, recognized the patterns, helped clients recognize similar manipulation in their own lives. When it's your own family, your own mother, your own sister, the people who are supposed to love you, supposed to have your best interests at heart, it's different. You want to believe them. You want to believe that you're the one with the problem, because the alternative is too painful to consider. Maybe I was being too suspicious. Maybe Derek really was just trying to help. Maybe I was projecting my own trust issues, legitimate trust issues, earned through bitter experience, onto a situation that didn't warrant them. Maybe I was the problem. Then I looked at the probate filings. In North Carolina, probate records are public. Anyone can access them through the county clerk's office or, in most cases, through an online database. It took me about 15 minutes of searching to find the documents Derek had filed for my father's estate. The first thing I noticed was the valuation. Total estate, $847,000. I stared at that number for a very long time. I knew my father's financial situation better than anyone except my father himself, and possibly my mother, though I was starting to doubt that. He'd talked to me about it over the years, not in exhaustive detail, but enough that I had a general sense of what he'd accumulated. He owned his house outright, the house where I'd grown up. Current market value, at least $450,000, probably more given recent appreciation in the Charlotte area. He owned a rental property, a duplex he'd inherited from his own father back in 1989. He'd maintained it carefully, collected rent from 2 reliable tenants, and used the income as supplementary retirement funds. Current market value, at least $300,000. He had retirement accounts, 401k from his employer, IRAs, a small pension. He had savings accounts, checking accounts, a brokerage account he'd been contributing to for 35 years. He had told me, not 6 months before he died, that he was comfortable and didn't have to worry about money. You don't say that when your entire estate is worth $847,000. Not when your house alone is worth more than half that amount. Something was wrong. I pulled up the supporting documents attached to the probate filing. The house was listed at $485,000, reasonable. But the duplex was appraised at only $285,000, at least $50,000 below what comparable properties in that neighborhood were selling for. And the financial accounts. The financial accounts totaled $77,000. $77,000. My father had been investing for 40 years. He had a pension. He had Social Security. He had multiple retirement accounts. There was absolutely no way his financial accounts totaled $77,000. I double-checked the numbers, triple-checked them, looked at every page of the filing. The math didn't add up. The math never lies. I didn't confront anyone. Not yet. 20 years of forensic accounting had taught me that accusations without evidence are worse than useless. They alert the target. They give them time to cover their tracks, destroy documents, construct alibis. They make you look paranoid and vindictive while the real criminals prepare their defense. If something was wrong, and I was increasingly certain something was very wrong, I needed to prove it. I needed documents, records, concrete evidence. So I started gathering it. That night, I sat at my dining room table with my laptop, a legal pad, a pot of coffee, and the beginnings of a plan. Leonard sat on the chair across from me, watching with feline indifference as I made a list of everything I knew, everything I suspected, and everything I needed to prove. What I knew, my father's estate was being valued significantly lower than its actual worth. Large sums appeared to be missing from his financial accounts. The duplex appraisal was at least $50,000, $55,000 below market value. Derek was in control of the entire estate administration. I was being actively excluded from any involvement or oversight. My mother was signing documents without my knowledge or input. What I suspected, Derek and Brooke were manipulating the estate for their own benefit. Assets were being hidden, undervalued, or stolen. There might be a fraudulent will or other legal documents. My father's belongings had been removed from the house to prevent discovery of evidence. My mother was being kept deliberately uninformed, or worse, what I needed to prove. Everything I started with public records. Property records were easy. I pulled up the county assessor's database and looked at recent sales in the neighborhood where my father's duplex was located. 3 comparable properties had sold in the past year. one for $342,000, one for $358,000, and one for $377,000. The duplex Derek had appraised at $285,000 was in better condition than at least two of those properties. My father had replaced the roof just 4 years ago. The appraisal was at least $55,000 low, possibly as much as $80,000. I documented everything: screenshots, notes, timestamps. Then I tried to access my father's bank records. 6 years ago, when my father had knee replacement surgery, he'd asked me to handle his bills during his recovery. We'd set up a power of attorney, a limited one, just for financial matters, just for the duration of his recovery. But POAs don't automatically expire when the immediate need passes. My father had never revoked it. I called his primary bank and explained the situation. I provided the POA documentation. I requested account statements. The request was denied. "I'm sorry, Ms. Collins," the representative said, "but this account has been transferred to estate administration. You'll need to contact the executor for access. I have a valid power of attorney." The POA terminates at the account holder's death. Estate accounts are controlled by the executor. You'll need to contact Derek Harrington. I hung up the phone and sat very still for several minutes. Derek had locked me out. Completely. Legally. I couldn't access any of my father's financial records without going through him, unless I could find copies somewhere else. I texted Brooke the next day. "Hey, I had some questions about Dad's estate. The duplex appraisal seems really low compared to recent sales in that area. I looked at comparable properties, and they're selling for $340K, $380K. Can I see the supporting documentation for the $285K appraisal?" Her response came 23 minutes later. "Derek hired a licensed appraiser. They're professionals. It's not really your area of expertise. Maybe stop second-guessing everyone? It's not a good look, Mary." I stared at that message for a long time. It's not really your area of expertise. I have a master's degree in accounting. I've conducted dozens of forensic audits. I've testified in court as an expert witness on financial fraud. I've helped recover millions of dollars for clients who were victims of embezzlement, investment fraud, and estate manipulation. But sure, property valuation isn't my area of expertise. I typed several responses, deleted them all, finally settled on, "I'm just trying to make sure everything's done correctly. That's what Dad would have wanted." Brooke's reply: "Dad would have wanted us to trust each other. He would have wanted you to stop being so suspicious all the time. Can you try doing that? For Mom's sake?" I put down my phone. I didn't respond, but I didn't stop investigating either. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in slow, methodical evidence gathering. I pulled every public record I could find: property assessments, tax filings, corporate registrations, court documents. I created spreadsheets tracking what the estate filing claimed versus what the public records suggested. The discrepancies were significant. The duplex was undervalued by at least $55,000. But there were other issues too. My father's car, a 3-year-old Toyota Camry, was listed on the estate at $12,000. Blue Book value for that model in that condition was $18,500, a $6,500 difference. His personal property, furniture, electronics, tools, collectibles, was listed at $8,000 total. I remembered his garage workshop alone had tools worth more than that. He'd spent 50 years accumulating quality equipment. A single snap-on tool chest was worth $3,000. Everything was undervalued, systematically, consistently. And those were just the things I could verify through public records. What about the things I couldn't see? What about the bank accounts, The investment portfolios, the life insurance policies. What about the things Derek might have hidden entirely? December 15th, 4 days before the uninvitation call. I was at my office going through my father's probate filing for the dozenth time when I noticed something I'd missed before. The executor bond. In North Carolina, executors of estates are typically required to post a bond, an insurance policy that protects beneficiaries if the executor mishandles assets. The bond amount is usually based on the value of the estate. Derek had filed for a bond waiver. The waiver was granted because the will filed with the probate court, explicitly stated that the executor should serve without bond. That seemed odd to me. My father was careful, thorough. He would have understood the purpose of a bond requirement. Why would he waive it? Unless he didn't. I pulled up the will that had been filed with the probate court. I'd looked at it before, but only briefly. Now I examined it more carefully. It was dated September 3rd of the current year. September 3rd. My father died on April 17th. For a long moment, I thought I must be misreading it. I checked the date 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. September 3rd. The will filed with the probate court was dated almost 5 months after my father's death. That was impossible, unless the will was forged. My hands were shaking as I looked more closely at the document. The format was professional. Legal language, proper paragraphs, appropriate sections. It looked like a legitimate will. It had a notary stamp at the bottom, 2 witness signatures, everything you'd expect. But the signature. My father signed his name in a very particular way. I'd watched him do it hundreds of times over the years. On birthday cards, on checks, on documents when I'd helped him with his taxes. He had a distinctive flourish on the G, a sharp upstroke on the C, a specific way the letters flowed together. This signature was similar, but not quite right. The G was too narrow. The C didn't have the same sharpness. The overall flow was slightly off, more hesitant, less confident. I wasn't a handwriting expert. I couldn't testify in court that this signature was fake based on my own observation. But I knew my father's handwriting. I'd know it anywhere. This wasn't it. I looked at the witnesses: Daniel Whitmore, Sarah Chen, names I didn't recognize. I searched for them online. Daniel Whitmore, Associate, Harrington Financial Group. Sarah Chen, Office Manager, Harrington Financial Group. The witnesses to my father's supposed will were Derek's employees. I drove to my mother's house the next morning, December 16th. I didn't call ahead. I didn't warn anyone. I needed to see my father's original will, the real one, the one he'd shown me years ago, the one that named me as executor, the one that divided everything equally. If I could compare the 2 documents, the real will and the forged one, I might be able to prove what was happening. Brooke answered the door. Her surprise at seeing me was immediate and obvious. "Mary, what are you doing here?" "I came to see Mom. She's resting. She's been tired lately. The grief. I want to see her." Brooke didn't move from the doorway. Behind her, I could see the living room. It looked different, emptier. My father's recliner was gone. His bookshelves had been cleared. His reading lamp was missing from the corner where it had stood for 20 years. "What happened to Dad's things?" Brooke's expression flickered. "We cleared out some stuff. Mom said it was too hard to look at." "Where did it go?" "Storage. Donation." "I'm not sure. Derek handled it." "Derek handled it. Of course he did." "I want to see Dad's original will." Something shifted in Brooke's face. A hardening, A calculation. What do you mean? His will. The original. I want to see it. The will is filed with the court. You can access it through... Not that will. I kept my voice steady. The original will. The one he had before. The one he showed me. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. We stood there, two sisters, 40 years of history between us. I saw the mask slip just for a moment. Saw something cold and determined underneath. Mom doesn't need this right now, Mary. She doesn't need you coming here, making accusations, stirring up problems. We're trying to take care of her. Why can't you just let us? Because something's wrong. The estate filing doesn't add up. The valuations are off. The will is dated after Dad died. You need to leave. I'm not leaving until I see Mom. Derek's voice came from inside the house. Is there a problem? He appeared behind Brooke, tall and composed, that familiar smile already in place, but his eyes were watchful. Meredith was just leaving, Brooke said. I want to see my mother. Patricia is resting, Derek said smoothly. She's been having a difficult time. We've been trying to protect her from stress. Protect her? Or isolate her? Derek's smile didn't waver. I understand that grief can make people say things they don't mean. We all handle loss differently. But coming here and making accusations... Where are my father's financial records? The smile flickered, just for a microsecond. Then it was back. All the estate documents are filed with the probate court. You can access them through the proper channels. The probate documents show $77,000 in financial accounts. My father had been investing for 40 years. Where's the rest? I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. We stood there, the three of us, the tension building. I could feel something dangerous in the air, the sense of approaching a point of no return. Then my mother appeared at the top of the stairs. Meredith, what are you doing here? She looked different, smaller somehow, diminished. She moved carefully down the stairs, one hand on the railing, like she wasn't entirely sure of her footing. I came to see you, Mom. That's nice, dear. But I was sleeping. The medication makes me so tired. What medication? For sleep, for anxiety. Brooke's friend, Dr. Harrison, prescribed it. He's very kind. I looked at my mother, really looked at her. Her eyes were glassy. Her movements were slow. She seemed foggy. Mom, what exactly are you taking? I don't know the names. Brooke handles all that. She's been so helpful. Brooke moved to my mother's side, took her arm, guided her toward the kitchen. Mom, why don't you sit down? I'll make you some tea. That sounds nice, dear. They moved away. Derek remained in the doorway, blocking my path. I think you should go, he said quietly. Something's wrong with her. She's grieving. She's elderly. These things take time. She's not elderly, Derek. She's 68 years old. Old enough to need help. Old enough to need family who actually shows up. He leaned closer. You've always been the suspicious one, Meredith. The negative one. The one who finds problems where there aren't any. This is a family matter. I suggest you let family handle it. I am family. Are you? He smiled. Funny. You never seemed to think so before. Always too busy with work to come to holidays. Always too distracted to help with the day-to-day. Now suddenly you want to be involved? Now suddenly you care? I've always cared. Then why wasn't your name on anything? Why didn't Gerald ever ask you to handle his finances? Why did he give me his power of attorney and not you? I went cold. What? Gerald gave me power of attorney last year. For health care and finances, all legal, all proper. He trusted me, Meredith. He trusted me when he didn't trust you. I knew that wasn't true. I knew my father. I knew how he felt about Derek. But Derek's smile said he had documentation. Derek's smile said he could prove it, at least in a courtroom. I turned and left. I didn't know what else to do, but I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. December 19th, 3:47 p.m. Brooke's name appeared on my phone. I was at my desk, trying to focus on work. But my mind kept circling back to my mother's foggy eyes, Derek's confident smile. The will dated 5 months after my father's death. "I've been talking to Mom," Brooke said when I answered. "And we both think it would be better if you didn't come to Christmas dinner this year." There it was. "Excuse me?" "It's just, this is Mom's first Christmas without Dad. She needs it to be peaceful, positive, and you always find something to criticize, something to question. We can't have that energy in the room." "What have I done wrong?" "It's not about wrong, Mary. It's about energy. Your energy. You make people tense. You make them feel like they're being judged. Mom doesn't need that right now. None of us do. I haven't even said anything controversial. You came to the house and interrogated everyone. You accused Derek of, I don't even know what you were accusing him of. Mom was upset for hours after you left. I asked questions, legitimate questions about the estate. See? This is exactly what I'm talking about. You can't just let things be. You can't just trust family. You always have to pick everything apart. It's exhausting, Meredith. It's exhausting to be around." I took a breath, held it, let it out slowly. "Fine. I'll stay home. Thank you for understanding. I knew you would. You're so practical." Practical. Another word that meant cold. Unfeeling. Not like Brooke. She was about to hang up when she added something. An afterthought. A casual comment that changed everything. "Besides, Derek's presenting some estate updates after dinner. Financial stuff. It's better if family handles it without complications." Estate updates. After dinner, on Christmas. What kind of updates? Just restructuring. Mom signing some documents. It's all taken care of, Mary. You don't need to worry about it. What documents is Mom signing? God, see, this is exactly what I mean. This is why you can't come. You can't just... Brooke, what is Mom signing? Silence. Then coldly, "Goodbye, Meredith. Merry Christmas." Click. I sat in my office for 11 minutes without moving. Estate updates, documents to sign, on Christmas Day, with me conveniently excluded. That's when I understood. I wasn't being uninvited for being negative. I was being uninvited because I was the only person who would notice what they were about to do. That night, I made my plan. I sat at my dining room table until 3 a.m., drinking coffee and thinking through every angle. I needed evidence. Real, concrete, irrefutable evidence. I needed to find it before Christmas Day. And I needed to figure out how to expose what was happening in a way that my mother couldn't ignore. I started with the one thing I'd almost forgotten. My father kept copies of everything. He'd learned it from his father, my grandfather, who'd survived the Depression and never fully trusted banks again. Grandpa kept duplicate records of everything important in a lockbox that we'd found when cleaning out his house after he died. "Smart man, your grandfather," Dad had said that day. "Always kept a backup. You never know who might try to rewrite history after you're gone." I'd asked if Dad kept backups too. He'd smiled, changed the subject, but I knew my father. He'd learned from his own father. He was careful, thorough. paranoid in that particular way that people who grew up watching their parents struggle with money often become. He would have kept copies, somewhere safe, somewhere outside the house. December 20th, 6 a.m. I started calling storage facilities. It was a long shot, but I remembered my father mentioning, years ago during a basement renovation, that he'd rented a unit to store some things off-site temporarily. I'd assumed everything came back when the renovation was done, but what if it hadn't? I called every major storage facility within 30 miles of my parents' house, explained that I was the daughter of Gerald Collins, recently deceased, trying to settle his affairs. 14 facilities said no. No account under that name. 2 said they couldn't give out customer information over the phone. The 17th call was to Secure Space Self-Storage. Collins Gerald, the woman said after checking her computer. Yes, we have that account. Unit 247, monthly rate, paid through next June. I almost dropped the phone. Has anyone accessed the unit recently? Keyboard clicking. Last access was March 28th. Account holder himself, Gerald Collins. March 28th. 3 weeks before my father died. What do I need to do to access the unit? Are you on the access list? I held my breath. I don't know. Can you check? More clicking. Meredith Collins? Yes. You're listed as secondary contact with full access. Just need to see your ID when you come in. We're open until 9 p.m. I was in my car in 10 minutes. Secure Space was exactly what you'd expect from a storage facility. Rows of orange metal buildings behind chain-link fencing, a small office trailer with a flickering fluorescent sign, a parking lot with faded lines and cracked asphalt. I checked in at the office. A woman named Carol, according to her name tag, copied my driver's license and handed me a key. Haven't seen any activity on that unit in months, she said. Usually I'd send a reminder about annual renewals, but it was prepaid through next summer. Your daddy was real organized. He was. Thank you. Unit 247 was on the second floor, at the end of a long concrete corridor that smelled like dust and old cardboard. The roll-up door was secured with a combination lock. I tried my birthday, 0719, nothing. I tried my mother's birthday, 0924, nothing. I tried their anniversary, 0612, nothing. I stood there trying to think like my father. What would he use? Something personal but not obvious. Something meaningful. I tried Lily's birthday, 1105. Nothing. I tried my parents' first date, a story I'd heard 100 times. The church picnic in the summer of 76-08-15. Nothing. I was running out of ideas when I remembered something. My father used to say that I was his first great accomplishment. He'd started saying it after Lily was born. Now I have 2 great accomplishments. A family joke. Something we both smiled at. I tried the date I passed the CPA exam, 0723. The lock clicked open. The unit was about 10 feet by 10 feet, climate-controlled, carefully organized. Shelves along one wall held labeled boxes. A small fireproof safe sat in the corner. A folding table held a desk lamp and a plastic chair, the kind you might find in a break room. This wasn't just storage. This was an office, a backup, a place where my father had been preparing for something. On the table, propped against the lamp, was a sealed envelope with my name on it. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper, my father's handwriting. Dated March 28th. Mary, if you're reading this, then I was right to be worried. And I'm probably gone. Everything you need is in this unit. The safe combination is 0215, your mother's and my first date. The real one, not the one we tell people. I don't know exactly what's happening, but I know something isn't right. Derek's been pressuring me for months to let him manage my investments. He's been asking questions about my will. Brooke's been coming around more often than usual, being nicer than usual, and you know that's not normal. Your mother doesn't see it. She never has. She wants to believe the best about everyone, especially family. That's a beautiful quality, but it's also a vulnerability. I've tried to protect her from that. I've tried to protect both of you. I've always trusted your instincts, sweetheart. You see things other people miss. You ask questions other people are afraid to ask. That's not a flaw, whatever your mother might say. That's a gift. I'm leaving everything with you because I know you'll do what needs to be done. You'll follow the evidence. You'll find the truth. You'll protect our family, even the ones who don't deserve protecting. Don't let them rewrite our history. Don't let them erase what's true. All my love, Dad. P.S. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you in person. I kept hoping I was wrong. I sat down in the plastic chair and cried. It took me 15 minutes to compose myself enough to open the safe. Inside, I found everything. 1. My father's original will, dated June 14, 2019, signed in his distinctive handwriting. The flourish on the G, the sharp upstroke on the C. Witnessed by 2 of his longtime colleagues, both now retired. The will named me as executor. It divided everything equally between my mother, Brooke, and me, with provisions for Lily's education, if anything happened to me before distribution. And it contained a clause I'd forgotten about. Under no circumstances shall Derek Michael Harrington participate in any aspect of this estate's administration. He is specifically excluded from serving as executor, trustee, advisor, or consultant. This exclusion is intentional and should not be treated as an oversight. My father had seen this coming. Years ago. 2. A folder labeled Derek Concerns. Inside were printed emails. Pages and pages of them. Most were between Derek and someone named Marcus Whitfield at Harrington Financial Group. The emails discussed the Collins account and timeline acceleration. They referenced the wife's compliance and removing obstacles to transfer. They used phrases like, "Once the old man is out of the picture," and "the sister won't be a problem if we handle it right." The emails were dated February and March of this year, the weeks before my father died. 3. Bank statements, accounts I'd never seen. A brokerage account at Charles Schwab, $847,000. A savings account at a credit union my father had used since the 1980s, $156,000. A money market account, $89,000. These accounts weren't in the estate filing at all. 4 property records. A deed for a small commercial building in Gastonia. My father had purchased it in 2012. It was leased to a dry cleaning business. Current estimated value, $420,000. I'd never heard of this property. It wasn't in the estate filing. 5 life insurance documents, 3 policies, total death benefit, $400,000. Beneficiary, Patricia Collins. Secondary beneficiary, Meredith Collins, not in the estate filing. 6 trust documents. A trust my father had established 6 years ago, funded with index funds and treasury bonds. Current value, approximately $900,000. Beneficiaries, Meredith Collins and Lillianne Marsh. I stared at that number for a long time. My father had set aside over $1 million for me and my daughter, in a trust structured so that Derek couldn't touch it, couldn't even know about it unless someone told him. He'd been protecting us, quietly, for years. 7. A power of attorney document, dated 2018, naming me, not Derek, as my father's agent for financial and healthcare decisions. This directly contradicted what Derek had claimed. Either Derek was lying about having POA, or he'd created a fraudulent document to replace this one. 8. A USB drive labeled Recordings. I plugged it into my laptop. 12 audio files, dates ranging from January to March of this year. I clicked on the first one, and I heard my father's voice. The recordings were phone conversations. My father had apparently been recording his calls with Derek for months. Recording 1st January 15th. Gerald, I really think you should consider letting me consolidate your investments. These scattered accounts across different institutions, it's inefficient. You're losing money in fees alone. I appreciate the concern, Derek, but I'm comfortable with my current setup. Comfortable doesn't mean optimal. I could probably get you an extra 3, maybe 4% annually. Over time, that's significant money. I've been investing for 40 years. I think I know what I'm doing. Of course you do. I just want to help. That's what family is for, right? Recording 4, February 8th. Have you given any more thought to updating your estate plan, Gerald? I don't see why I would. Everything's in order. Things change. Tax laws change. You might want to consider a trust structure that's more protective. I know some excellent estate attorneys who specialize in exactly this kind of thing. My will is fine, Derek. You have Meredith as executor, right? Are you sure that's the best choice? Why wouldn't it be? Well, you know how she is. Suspicious of everyone. Sees problems where there aren't any. Do you really want that energy involved in something as sensitive as estate administration? Meredith is the most competent person I know. Competent, sure. But competent doesn't always mean wise. She might make things complicated just because she can. I think we're done discussing this, Derek. Recording 9, March 3rd. Gerald, I'm going to be direct with you. Brooke is concerned. Concerned about what? About the estate structure. About what happens to Patricia when you're gone. She doesn't feel like the current plan provides adequate protection. The current plan is none of Brooke's business. She's your daughter, Gerald. This is her inheritance we're talking about. It's my money, Derek. I'll decide what happens to it. Of course. But think about what you're doing. You're putting everything in Meredith's hands. Meredith, who lives 40 minutes away and can barely make it to Sunday dinner. Meredith, who's so wrapped up in her work she doesn't notice her own family struggling. You want her making decisions for Patricia? Meredith will make sure everything is fair. That's exactly the point. Fair isn't always best. Sometimes protecting family means making hard choices. What hard choices, Derek? I'm just saying, if you named me as co-executor, I could help. I could make sure Patricia is taken care of. Make sure the transitions happen smoothly. I could protect everyone. Including yourself? I'm family, Gerald. Protecting myself means protecting all of us. Recording 12, March 22nd. This one was different. Not a phone call. My father talking to himself. Or maybe to me. Something's wrong. I can feel it. Derek's been coming around more, asking questions. Brooke, too. She's suddenly interested in visits, in helping around the house and making sure I'm comfortable. That's not like her. Patricia doesn't see it. She never does. She thinks the best of people, always has. That's what I love about her. But it's also what scares me. I'm going to put everything together. Copies of everything. Leave them somewhere safe. Somewhere Mary can find them. If something happens to me, I don't know. Maybe I'm paranoid. Maybe I'm just an old man who's watched too many crime shows. But if I'm right, if Derek is what I think he is, Mary will know what to do. She's always known. She sees things. That's my girl. God help them all if they try to take her on. I sat in that storage unit until the sun went down. I read every document, listened to every recording, made copies of everything important, and uploaded them to a secure cloud account. The picture was clear now. My father's actual estate was worth over $4 million. The filing Derek had submitted claimed $847,000. The difference, more than $3 million, had been hidden, undervalued, or was in the process of being stolen. The forged will gave Derek control of everything. It cut me out. It left my mother as sole beneficiary, with Brooke inheriting everything after her death. And the documents my mother was signing on Christmas Day, powers of attorney, property transfers, trust agreements, would complete the theft. They would give Derek legal control of everything my father had spent 50 years building, unless I stopped it. I called Ellen Markham at 9 p.m. that night. Ellen was the best estate attorney in Charlotte. My father had mentioned her once, years ago. If you ever need a lawyer for something important, call Ellen Markham. She's the only one I trust, and I don't trust lawyers. Her office was closed for the holidays, but her voicemail offered an emergency option. I used it. She called back in 11 minutes. Meredith Collins? I've been expecting to hear from you. Expecting? Your father called me in February, said someone might try to contest his will after he died. He wanted me to keep a copy on file just in case. You have his real will? The one from 2019, it's in my safe right now, along with some notes he sent me about concerns he had regarding his son-in-law. I could have cried with relief. There's a forged will filed with the probate court, dated 5 months after my father's death. I know. I saw the filing. I was waiting to see if anyone would challenge it. I have evidence, documents, recordings, financial records. My father left them in a storage unit. How much evidence? Enough to prove fraud. Possibly enough to prove more. Bring everything to my office tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. I'll be there. Your office is closed. I'll open it. This is exactly the kind of thing I became a lawyer to handle. Ellen Markham was in her mid-60s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, wearing a charcoal suit even though her office was officially closed for the holiday. She'd been practicing estate law for 37 years, had argued cases before the state Supreme Court twice, and had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless when representing clients who'd been victimized by family members. Your father was smart, she said, after spending 3 hours reviewing everything I'd brought. Paranoid in all the right ways. Most people in his situation, they don't prepare, they don't document, they just die, and their families never know what really happened. Can we stop it? Can we stop whatever they're signing tomorrow? Ellen leaned back in her chair. We can file an emergency motion with the probate court first thing on the 26th. Challenge the will on grounds of forgery and fraud. Request an injunction against any further estate transactions. But that's after Christmas. My mother will have already signed the documents. If she signs documents while incapacitated, which, based on what you're describing about her medication, seems likely, those documents can be challenged. It's a longer process, but it's doable. What if there was another way? Ellen raised an eyebrow. What did you have in mind? The recordings, my father's voice. If my mother heard him warning her about Derek, it might break through, whatever fog she's in. Or it might cause a scene that Derek uses to discredit you further. Maybe. But he's already discredited me. He's already convinced everyone I'm the problem. What do I have to lose? Ellen studied me for a long moment. Your relationship with your mother, what's left of your relationship with your sister, the possibility of settling this quietly. This can't be settled quietly. They're stealing everything my father built. They're drugging my mother to make her compliant. If I don't stop them now, then you stop them publicly, in front of witnesses, with evidence that can't be explained away. Yes. Ellen was quiet for several seconds. Then she smiled, a sharp, predatory smile that I found deeply reassuring. I like the way you think, Miss Collins. Tell me more. December 24th, Christmas Eve. I spent the afternoon preparing. The gift box was a large one, meant for a coat or a blanket. Gold wrapping paper, red ribbon, a handwritten tag, to the Collins family, from Meredith. Inside, I layered everything carefully. Layer 1. A framed photograph of my father and me from my birthday last year. Real, meaningful, something that would make my mother pause. Layer 2. A letter, sealed in an envelope and taped to the inside of the box lid. Dear Mom, I'm sorry I couldn't be there today. I know Brooke thinks I'm too negative, too suspicious, too much. But Dad didn't think so. And I think, if you listen, you might remember what he actually wanted for our family. Play the recording, then look at the documents, then decide what you want to do. I love you. I always have. Even when it seemed like you couldn't see it. Mary Layer 3. Tissue paper concealing a Bluetooth speaker connected to my phone, rigged to activate when someone opened the box. Layer 4. A USB drive taped to the bottom, containing everything. The real will, the bank statements, the property records, the emails, the audio recordings. It was a gamble, a huge one. If Brooke intercepted the package and threw it away, the plan failed. If Derek found the speaker before it played, the plan failed. If my mother was too sedated to understand what she was hearing, the plan failed. But it was the best option I had. The only option that might work. At 11:47 p.m., I drove to my mother's house. The neighborhood was quiet, decorated for Christmas, peaceful. I parked 3 houses down and walked to the front porch. The house was dark. Everyone was asleep. I placed the gift on the doormat, rang the doorbell, and ran. Christmas morning. I watched through the security cameras as the day unfolded. Brooke came downstairs first, around 8:15 a.m. She made coffee, checked her phone, noticed the package on the porch. She brought it inside, read the tag, frowned. Derek came down at 8:30. They had a conversation I couldn't hear. The camera's audio wasn't great, but their body language was tense, suspicious. Derek examined the box, shook it, set it aside. My mother appeared at 9:00. She looked frail, slow. She sat in her usual chair and stared at the Christmas tree with an expression that broke my heart. Guests began arriving at noon. Uncle Richard with his wife Helen, Aunt Grace with her kids, Derek's parents, neighbors and friends and extended family members, filling the house with noise and laughter and the illusion of normalcy. 23 people by my count. 23 potential witnesses. At 3:32 p.m., my mother noticed the package. I watched her point at it, ask about it, saw Brooke's face tighten, saw her try to take it away, saw my mother hold firm, saw her pull the ribbon. The photograph came first. I watched my mother lift it from the tissue paper, hold it close to her face, trace the outline of my father's smile with one trembling finger. She was crying. I could see the tears, even on the grainy camera feed. Then she found the envelope. "What's this?" "It's from Meredith," Brooke said. "You know how she is. It's probably just some guilt trip." "It's from my daughter." My mother's voice, sharp and clear. "Let me read it." She opened the envelope, read the letter. Her face changed. Confusion, then something else. Determination, maybe. What does she mean, what Dad actually wanted? Mom, she's just trying to cause drama. This is exactly why we didn't invite her. What does she mean about a recording? That's when my mother's fingers found the speaker. She was lifting the tissue paper, looking for more contents. Her hand caught the pull tab. The speaker activated. My phone buzzed. Device connected. I pressed play. Something's wrong. I can feel it. My father's voice filled the room. I watched 23 people freeze. Derek's been coming around more, asking questions. Brooke, too. She's suddenly interested in visits, in helping around the house. That's not like her. Patricia doesn't see it. She never does. She thinks the best of people always has. On camera, my mother rose to her feet, clutching the speaker like it was my father himself. If something happens to me, Mary will know what to do. She's always known. She sees things. That's my girl. Derek lunged for the speaker. My mother pulled it away from him. Don't touch it. Patricia, this is manipulated. Meredith edited these recordings. That's my husband's voice. I played the next recording. I'm just trying to understand the investment structure, Derek. Gerald, the returns are better if we consolidate. Optimize them for who? For the family. For Patricia. For when you're gone. That's what Meredith is for. She's my executor. You might want to reconsider that decision. Derek's voice, clear as a bell, playing for everyone to hear. Uncle Richard stepped forward. Is that you, Derek? The recordings are fake. It sounds like you. I played another recording. Think about Brooke, Gerald. Think about what it would do to her if she found out you left Meredith in charge. Meredith will make sure everything is fair. That's the point. Fair isn't always best. Sometimes protecting family means making hard choices. Is that a threat? It's an observation. Things have a way of working out for people who cooperate. Aunt Grace gasped. That's definitely a threat. Derek grabbed the speaker from my mother's hands and smashed it against the coffee table. The recording stopped, but the silence that followed was worse. What else did Meredith send? My mother reached into the box, found the USB drive. Someone help me hook this up to the TV. Derek stepped forward. Patricia, you don't need to. Richard, my mother's voice was steel. Help me with this. Uncle Richard took the USB drive, found a cable, connected it to the television. The files appeared on screen. And for the next 4 hours, 23 people watched everything unravel. They saw the 2 wills. The original from 2019 in my father's handwriting, naming me as executor, explicitly excluding Derek. The forged one from September, typed in a standard template, dated 5 months after my father's death. That's impossible, Aunt Grace said. You can't notarize a will for a dead man. Unless the notary records are fake, too, Uncle Richard replied. They saw the bank statements. The accounts Derek had reported, $77,000 total. The accounts my father actually had, over $2 million. Where's the rest of the money, Derek? It was consolidated. It's all in the estate. Then why isn't it in the filing? They saw the property records, the duplex, undervalued by at least $55,000. The commercial building in Gastonia that Derek had hidden entirely. Did you know about this building, Trish? My mother shook her head slowly. Gerald never mentioned. I don't understand. They saw the life insurance, $400,000 unreported. They saw the trust, $100,000 set aside for me and Lily. They saw the emails. Once the old man is out of the picture, the sister won't be a problem if we handle it right. The wife's compliance is essential, and they listened to every recording. All 12 of them. My father's voice methodically documenting Derek's pressure campaign, Derek's voice threatening and cajoling and lying. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable. At 7:15 p.m., Aunt Grace called the police. Derek tried to leave. Uncle Richard blocked the door. "You're not going anywhere until we get answers. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to stand here and be interrogated." "Then sit down and be interrogated." Uncle Richard's voice was cold. "Because right now, you look guilty as hell, and running is only going to make it worse." Derek sat. The police arrived at 7:43 p.m. 2 officers. They took statements, reviewed the documents on the TV screen, asked questions. At 8:30 p.m., they placed Derek Harrington under arrest for forgery, fraud, and elder financial abuse. I watched it happen through the camera. The handcuffs, the Miranda rights, Brooke screaming that everyone was overreacting. My mother sat alone at the dining table, staring at my father's empty chair. Then my phone rang. "Meredith." My mother's voice, broken and raw. "Meredith, I'm so sorry." "I know, Mom. I didn't see it. I couldn't see it. The pills, they made everything so foggy. I trusted Brooke. I trusted Derek. I trusted everyone except the one person I should have trusted. You couldn't have known." "Yes, I could have. I should have. You tried to tell me. For years you tried to tell me, and I called you negative. I called you difficult. I pushed you away." She was crying now. "Your father tried to warn me too. In those recordings, he knew. He knew I wouldn't listen, so he left everything with you. He trusted you when I couldn't. He trusted both of us, Mom. He just knew we'd need different things. Will you come over? Please? I know I don't deserve it, but I need to see you. I'm already on my way." I drove to my mother's house for Christmas dinner. When I walked through the front door, she was waiting in the foyer. She looked older than she had that morning. Older and smaller and terribly fragile. But her eyes were clear. She opened her arms, and I walked into them, and we held each other in the hallway where I'd grown up. "I love you, Mary," she whispered. "I'm so sorry it took me so long to say it." "I love you too, Mom. Your father would be so proud of you." "I know." And for the first time in months, I let myself believe it. The criminal case took 18 months. Derek was charged with forgery, fraud, elder financial abuse, conspiracy to commit theft, wire fraud, and obstruction of justice. The medication scheme added additional charges: conspiracy to administer substances without consent and practicing medicine without a license. He pleaded not guilty. His attorney tried every defense. The recordings were manipulated. My father was mentally incompetent. The estate restructuring was a good faith misunderstanding. Derek was just trying to help his family. None of it worked. The forged will had metadata showing it was created on a computer in Derek's home office, 5 months after my father's death. The notary stamp didn't match county records. The witnesses, Derek's employees, eventually cooperated with prosecutors in exchange for reduced sentences, testifying that Derek had paid them each $5,000 to sign documents they knew were fraudulent. And Marcus Whitfield, Derek's colleague from the emails, testified about the entire scheme. He'd been fired from Derek's firm after the Christmas incident and was facing his own legal troubles. To save himself, he told the jury everything. Derek was convicted on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 16 years in state prison. He'll be eligible for parole in 11 years. Dr. Harrison turned out to be Alan Harrison, a chiropractor who'd been writing illegal prescriptions for years using a stolen DEA number. Derek had found him through a network of people who specialized in elder management, a polite term for helping families gain control over aging relatives who weren't cooperating with estate plans. The medications my mother had been taking, lorazepam, trazodone, Ambien, were sedatives that, taken together, caused confusion, memory loss, and impaired judgment. Exactly the symptoms my mother had been displaying. Harrison was arrested 3 months after Derek. He pleaded guilty and received 8 years in federal prison. My mother spent 6 weeks tapering off the drugs under legitimate medical supervision. The transformation was remarkable. Within 2 months, she was sharp again, engaged, asking questions about everything that had happened. "I feel like I've been underwater," she told me, "and I finally came up for air." The civil case moved faster. Ellen Markham filed to invalidate the forged will within a week of Christmas. The probate court granted our motion, reinstating my father's original will, the one naming me as executor. Then we reconstructed the estate. It took 8 months to trace every hidden account, every undervalued property, every unreported asset. We recovered funds that had been consolidated into accounts Derek controlled. We filed liens and lawsuits and demanded documentation from every institution that had touched my father's money. The final accounting: house, $485,000, duplex, $365,000, commercial building in Gastonia, $420,000, brokerage accounts, $156,000, bank accounts, $245,000, life insurance, $400,000, trust for Lily and me, $100,000, vehicles and personal property, $112,000 total actual estate value, approximately $4.28 million. Derek's filing had claimed $847,000. He'd tried to steal more than $3.4 million from my family. Brooke took a deal. The DA offered her a choice: testify against Derek and cooperate fully with the investigation, or face charges as a co-conspirator. She chose cooperation. I sat in the courtroom and watched my sister explain, under oath, how her husband had manipulated her, how he'd convinced her that our father was making poor decisions, how he'd told her the will changes were just cleaning things up, how she'd believed him because she wanted to believe him. I don't know if I believe her. I don't know if it matters. She participated in the scheme. She helped isolate our mother. She tried to silence our father's voice even after he was dead, literally grabbed for the speaker to stop the recording from playing. I've tried to forgive her. I've tried to understand. I can't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Brooke moved to Florida after the trial. She sold the house in Myers Park. Derek's legal fees ate through everything they had and started over somewhere no one knew her history. Last I heard, she was working at a real estate office. She sent me one email about 6 months after Derek's conviction. "I know you'll never forgive me, but I wanted you to know I'm sorry." I didn't respond. What would I say? That I accept her apology? I don't. That I understand? I do, but understanding isn't forgiveness. That I want us to be sisters again? I'm not sure I do. Some betrayals go too deep. My mother and I rebuilt our relationship slowly. Sunday dinners, just the two of us. Long phone calls about nothing important. Afternoons in her garden, pulling weeds and talking about my father. She apologized to me properly about 4 months after the trial. We were sitting at her kitchen table, the same table where I'd watched her fog-eyed and confused a year earlier. "I owe you an apology," she said. "A real one. Mom, let me say this. Please." She took a breath. "I spent 40 years calling you negative, telling you to stop asking questions, making you feel like something was wrong with you because you noticed things other people missed. I know. Your father tried to tell me. He'd say, 'Patricia, Meredith sees things. She's trying to help.' And I'd tell him to let it go. I'd say you were just being difficult. It's okay. It's not okay. Her voice cracked. I was so afraid of conflict that I sacrificed the daughter who was trying to protect me for the daughter who was telling me what I wanted to hear. And I almost lost everything because of it. She reached across the table and took my hands. You're not negative, Meredith. You never were. You see the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when everyone else is looking away. I learned it from Dad. I know. And I'm grateful. Grateful that he saw it in you. Grateful that he trusted you. Grateful that you didn't give up on us, even when we gave you every reason to. I squeezed her hands. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart. I should have said it more. Lily came home for the trial. She sat beside me every day, held my hand when the evidence was presented, brought me coffee and made sure I ate. On the night of the verdict, she took me to dinner at an Italian restaurant my father used to love. Mom, she said, I need to tell you something. Okay. Grandpa called me a few weeks before he died. I set down my fork. He did? He was worried. He said things were happening with the family, things he didn't understand. He asked me if I trusted you. What did you say? That of course I did, that I always have. She reached across the table. He said, good. She's going to need that. Why didn't you tell me? Because he asked me not to. He said he was handling it. He just wanted someone else to know that you were right, that you weren't paranoid, that you weren't too negative. She squeezed my hand. He believed in you, Mom. He always did. I still live in my 3-bedroom ranch in Charlotte. I still have Leonard the cat, who still only likes me when I'm holding his food bowl. I still work as a CPA. My practice has grown since the trial. It turns out that being the woman who exposed a multi-million-dollar estate fraud is excellent for business. I've had clients come to me specifically because they read about the case and wanted someone who would fight for them. I took over management of my father's rental properties, the duplex and the commercial building in Gastonia. The income is enough that I could retire early if I wanted. I haven't decided yet. I like working. I like helping people understand their finances, find discrepancies, ask uncomfortable questions. I set up a scholarship in my father's name. It goes to accounting students who are first-generation college attendees, like he was. And every year, on the anniversary of his death, I drive to Secure Space and sit in Unit 247. I look at the empty shelves where his files used to be. I sit in the plastic chair where I read his letter for the first time. And I talk to him. I tell him about the trial, about Mom, about Lily. I tell him I miss him. I tell him thank you. And I tell him I'm not negative. I'm observant. I'm careful. I'm the person who notices when the numbers don't add up. Just like him. A few months after the trial, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Postmarked from Charlotte. Inside was a small velvet box. Inside the box was a watch. My father's watch. The Seiko he'd worn every day for 30 years. The one with the scratched crystal and the replacement band. I'd thought it was gone forever. Thrown away or donated with the rest of his things. But here it was. And on the back, an inscription I'd never seen before. To Mary. Trust what you see. Love, Dad. He'd had it engraved. At some point before he died, he'd taken his watch to a jeweler and put those words on the back. For me. I don't know who sent the package. Maybe someone found it in a donation pile and recognized the name. Maybe someone kept it safe, waiting for the right moment. It doesn't matter. I wear that watch every day. I trust what I see, and I always, always ask the uncomfortable questions. The lesson. If you take one thing from this story, let it be this. Your instincts are not negative. Your questions are not too much. Your attention to detail is not a character flaw. It's a gift. The people who tell you to stop asking questions are often the people with something to hide. The people who call you negative are often the people who benefit from your silence. The people who say you're making things complicated are often the people whose schemes depend on things staying simple. Don't believe them. Trust what you see. Document what you find. Ask the questions everyone else is afraid to ask. My father left me a storage unit full of evidence because he knew I was the only one who would look. My mother was saved because I refused to stop asking questions. My family was protected because I paid attention to the details that didn't add up. That's not negativity. That's love. It just looks different when you're the one doing the watching. If this story meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. If you've been through something similar, if you've been called negative for asking questions that saved your family, drop a comment. I read everyone. And if you're dealing with something like this right now, if someone you love is being isolated, manipulated, or exploited, don't stay silent. Trust what you see. The truth is heavy, but lies are heavier. Take care of yourselves out there. Resources. If you suspect elder financial abuse, contact Adult Protective Services in your state. Call the National Elder Fraud Hotline. 1-833-FRAUD-11. Consult with an elder law attorney. Document everything. Warning signs include sudden changes to wills, powers of attorney, or beneficiaries. A new helper who limits family access. Unexplained confusion in a previously sharp person. Missing financial documents or assets. Isolation from family members who ask questions. Trust your instincts. Ask the uncomfortable questions. Your negativity might save someone's life.